Hello, first graders. Welcome back to session 2 of our book that we're reading this week, our nonfiction book, Barbed Wire Baseball. All right, remember our main character, in this case, a real person. His nickname is Zini. Okay, remember Zini when he first wanted to play baseball? Everybody said he was too small, but he didn't listen, and baseball made him feel like a giant. It made him feel great about himself. And then when Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese and that all of the Japanese Americans were put into internment camps, that made Zini feel like he didn't measure up. It made him feel small again. It made him feel bad about himself. But then he got that great idea in the middle of this camp, in the middle of the desert. Remember, he took out his favorite photograph, that photograph of him with the famous New York Yankee baseball players, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and he got an idea. Let's just read that last sentence. He pinned the picture up over his bed. He was going to play baseball again, here in the desolate middle of nowhere. What do you think the word desolate means? The camp is in a desolate place. Yeah, it means far away from everything, empty. Okay, and in this hot desert camp in the middle of nowhere where the Japanese Americans were basically prisoners, Zini would create an amazing baseball field. Let's find out how he did it. First, he would need a playing field. There was plenty of empty space, but it was clodded with sagebrush and clodded with rocks. It didn't look like much of a field. Zini started by chopping down the plants and digging up the rocks, spending long hours in the blazing sun. Do you think this was fun? I don't think so. What does that word blazing mean? The blazing sun. It means it was super, super hot, scorching hot. And you can see how they're sweating working out in the desert like this. "What are you doing, Dad?" his son Howard asked. "Can't play baseball without a field," Zini grunted. "We're going to play baseball?" Howard grinned and started picking up rocks too. Soon Howard's brother Harvey joined them. Then other boys and men drifted to where Zini and his sons were bent over in the glaring heat. By the end of the day, dozens of people were working on the field, not planting a crop, but unplanting, making the ground a smooth surface. So what was the first thing that they had to do to make a baseball field? Yeah, they had to pull the plants out and they had to pick up all of the rocks. Once the brush and the biggest rocks had been cleared, Howard and Harvey were ready to set up the bases. "Looks good," Howard said. "We're almost set." Zini shook his head. "Nowhere close. We're making a real ballpark and we'll do it right." He walked over to the camp commander's office. 10 minutes later, he emerged into the bright sun, smiling. Why do you think he went to the camp commander's office and came out smiling? Do you think it has something to do with this picture? Can you use the picture to help you figure out what's going on in the story? Why do you think he went to the camp commander, like the boss of the whole camp? Why do you think he went to his office and then came out smiling? It has something to do with this picture. What is in that picture? Can you turn and tell somebody what's in the picture and why, what you think Zini went to the camp commander about? Yes, this is a bulldozer. And it's used to sometimes to lift things, but to smooth out ground. So do you think he could have gone to the camp commander's office to ask if he could use a bulldozer? Maybe. Let's find out. We've got it. He clapped his hands. What? Asked Howard. What have we got? A bulldozer to level the field, Zini replied. The commander said we can borrow the camps. As Zini drove the bulldozer, crowds gathered to watch. What's he doing? An old woman asked her grandson. He's making a baseball field, the young man answered. A baseball field? Whatever for? She asked. Her son smiled. So we can play. Are we right about the bulldozer? Yes, the camp commander gave him the camp's bulldozer. What does it mean when Zini says it's a bulldozer to level the field? What does level mean? What do you think level means? If something is level, yeah, it means that it's not different heights. It doesn't go up and down. It's not bumpy. It's smooth and even and the same height, okay? Because if you're going to play a baseball or soccer or football, any sport, you need a level playing field, not one that's bumpy and goes up and down. So they pulled the desert plants, cleared the rocks, leveled the ground with a bulldozer. Now what does it look like they're doing? Look at this picture. What is that? Yeah, it looks like a hose that has water coming out at different parts. Who might use something like this? And why do you think the Japanese American people in the camp are using it to make their baseball field? Do you have any ideas? Can you turn and tell mom and dad or brother and sister what you think is going on? Why are the people in the camp using this to help make their baseball field? Okay, let's find out. And this kind of looks like this hose with these things, water that pours out at different sections. This almost looks like what farmers use to water their fields. We call that irrigation. Irrigation means bringing water or carrying water to crops. And that's what it is. It's an irrigation hose. All right, let's find out why the people in the camp are using it. Once the ground had been smoothed, Harvey brought out his bat and ball. Now we can play ball, right? He asked. Zini shook his head. He still wasn't satisfied. The wind kicked up so much dust from the dry soil that the players would be eating dirt. Now, does this tell you why they might be using this hose? Yeah, the dirt was so dry and dusty that it just kept blowing in the air, almost like sand in the middle of the desert, but it was soil, but it kept blowing around. And if that was the case, the players would be taking dirt in to their mouths and noses, and they couldn't have that. We have to do this right. He looked around the camp, hoping to find something to solve the dust problem. How would the water solve the dust problem? Yeah, it would make it stop blowing because it would wet it and make it not dry so that it would blow around. All right, then he got an idea. He diverted or changed the direction of an irrigation line to the field and flooded it with water. Once the heat had dried the ground, the dirt was baked into clay. So when they wet the dirt, then the sun dried it and baked it, almost like pottery, baked it into a hard, smooth surface where the dust and dirt wouldn't blow around anymore. Once the heat had dried the ground, the dirt was baked into clay, a clean, hard surface without all the dust. Now, Dad? Asked Howard, tossing a ball between his hands. It looks great. Almost, Zini answered, but we're not there yet. What else do they need for this baseball field? They have a smooth, hard surface that's clear. What else do they need? Is it going to look like a baseball field if it's just one big, clean, hard surface? What else is on a baseball field for those of you who play baseball? Yeah, there's lines on the baseball field so the players know where to stand, right? And there's bases, of course. First base, second base, third base, and home. Does that look more like a baseball field? Yes, it does. The irrigation line gave Zini another idea. He laid pipe from the laundry room to the field and planted grass in the infield and quick-growing castor beans along the edge of the outfield. These are the castor bean trees. The pipe fed water to the plants, and soon the clay and grass took on the shape of a baseball field with a castor bean fence. Zini smiled. Now it was beginning to look real. Come on, Dad, Howard urged. Can't we at least mark the bases now? Go ahead, Zini agreed, but we're not done yet. Howard used flour to chalk the foul lines, and his mom sewed the bases from rice sacks. So they used like cloth rice bags to make the bases, and they used flour, which is that white powdery stuff that we use to make bread and cake. They used that to draw the lines on the field. It's perfect, Harvey said. What about the spectators, the fans? I'm going to read that again. What about the spectators, the fans? Zini asked. Where will they go? Both boys shrugged. Can't they just stand around? Howard asked. Or we can build rows of bleachers, Zini said, like on a real baseball field. What are bleachers? Yeah, bleachers are those rows of benches, right? Flat wooden benches where people sit to watch all kinds of games, outside and inside. So now they're going to build bleachers. How are they going to do that? What do you need to build bleachers? Yeah, you need wood, right? Or metal. Where would they get wood or metal from? What does it look like is going on here? Yeah, it looks like it's what time of the day? It's nighttime. And what's that big light? Yeah, that's a watchtower where they would see if prisoners, there's a guard standing there to see if prisoners are trying to escape. And they revolve that beam of light around and around to see if anybody's doing anything they're not supposed to do. And there's Zini and his sons. What do you think they're doing at night? Do you think they're escaping? What do you think they might be doing? Can you turn and tell mom and dad or someone next to you what you think they might be doing? I think it has something to do with the baseball field. And what did we say they needed to make the bleachers? They needed wood or metal. Maybe that's what they're looking for. Do you think they're going to get into trouble? Let's find out. That night, Zini and his sons snuck out of their barracks. They were not allowed outside after dark. Zini felt like a boy again, tiptoeing out of the house with his bat and glove so his parents wouldn't see him. A guard's light swept across the yard, and Zini motioned to the boys to flatten themselves against the barracks. They waited for the beam to pass. This is a beam, like a line. A beam is a line of light. So when they saw the beam, they got up against the wall of the barracks of the house that they were staying in. And then they waited for the light to go away and then crept on. They didn't know that the guard had seen them, but the commander had told him to let them go, just as long as they didn't escape. The commander was curious to see what Zini wanted now. Why didn't the guards saw them? Why didn't he arrest them? Why didn't they get in trouble? Why didn't he punish them? Yes, because the commander had said as long as they don't try to escape, let them go. He was curious to see what Zini was up to now. I'm curious too. What could Zini be doing? Where would he possibly be getting wood or metal from? There's Zini and his two sons. What does it look like they're doing? Look at the picture. Where are they getting wood from? Yes, it looks like they're taking the wood from the barbed wire fence that's surrounding the camp. The three of them scrounged wood from the fence surrounding the camp. They removed every other post, careful not to damage the fencing. Then they took wood from the camp lumberyard. That gave them enough material to build a backstop and 5 rows of bleachers behind it. So that's where they got their wood, from the fence and from the camp lumberyard. And they built bleachers for the spectators to sit in. What are spectators? Yes, the fans, the people who are watching the game are spectators. And look at this. All of the women are sewing. What does it look like they're sewing? It looks like they have numbers on them. Yeah, they're sewing uniforms for the players. Amazing. The next day, they set to work again, this time sawing wood and nailing boards. When Howard finished hammering the last row of seats, He wiped the sweat from his forehead and gaped at what they had made. There, in the middle of the desert, on the edge of an internment camp, was an official-looking baseball field. The rest of the place slumped, dreary and sad, but the baseball field glowed green with hope. "Now, Dad?" Harvey asked. "Almost," Zini smiled. "We have the field. Now we need the equipment." He passed a hat among the families, collecting money for gear. In an hour, he had enough to send for bats, balls, mitts, and hats from Holman's Sporting Goods back home in Fresno. Several women sewed uniforms out of potato sacks. When the box of equipment arrived, Zini let Howard open it. "Now, Howard," he said. "Now we can play ball." So now they had their equipment, bats and balls and mitts, the thing that the catcher puts on his hand. And they have uniforms made out of potato sacks that the women sewed. Now they are ready. Okay, we are going to stop right here. That was the middle of the story. Can you turn and tell Mom and Dad or brother and sister, tell 2 things that the people in the camp had to do in order to get the baseball field ready, in order to create a baseball field in the middle of the desert? Name 2 things they had to do. If you can tell more things that they had to do, that's great, but at least share 2 things. These are the 2 things that I thought of. They had to level the field, make it smooth and even surface, the same height, using the bulldozer. And then they had to wet the dirt, because remember, it was blowing around, and it would have blown into the eyes of the players. So they brought in an irrigation line and wet it down so that it baked into a hard surface. Amazing. It's amazing what these prisoners actually did and how they created this beautiful green field in the middle of this desert camp. All right, first graders, I can't wait to see you again for the ending of the story. I miss you. See you soon. Bye.